Rick and Morty came back this weekend for its 4th season, and whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny that the Sanchez's adventures through space have become one of the most popular series on the internet. Plus, it's jam-packed full of science, so if you end up watching it while you're procrastinating, you can definitely try to convince yourself that you learned something along the way. But what I want to know is how accurate is the science that we can find in Rick and Morty? To find out, I put on my lab coat, rewatched the last 3 seasons, and tried to convince myself that I hadn't just wasted the last 682 minutes of my life. The first episode I want to talk about looks at an issue which people have pondered over for centuries, while simultaneously touching on a really cool bit of science. In Rick Potion number 9, Morty asks Rick to produce a love potion for him so he can cause his crush Jessica to fall in love with him.
Hey, there's no dangers or anything or side effects, right?
The first thing most people want to know is whether or not a love potion could ever truly exist, and the answer to that is complicated, to say the least. Now, these things aren't going to make someone fall in love with you. Aphrodisiacs categorically do not work. But there has been a lot of research into what love is and what could cause someone to be more susceptible to falling in love with you. Love is only experienced in species where parental care is necessary to raise young, and where having 2 parents is better than 1. But how do you bottle that feeling and sell it to the highest bidder? It's pretty simple, and it comes down to these 2 chemicals, oxytocin and vasopressin. There's also another chemical which is really important in this thing that we call love, and that's called corticotropin releasing factor, or CRF. And it's this chemical which is responsible for the feeling of butterflies that you get deep in your stomach when you've spent a long time away from your partner, or just before you ask your crush out on a date. So, we know that these 3 chemicals are really important if you want to produce a love potion, but unfortunately, that's pretty much where the research ends. But frankly, that might not be a bad thing. The other really interesting thing about this episode, though, is the use of the flu virus as a means to transmit the love potion from Jessica to everyone else in the rest of the school.
I love Morty, and I hope Morty loves me.
The flu virus's relatives, adenoviruses, are often used to genetically modify cells in the lab. We use flu viruses because they've expertly evolved over millions of years to be able to inject their DNA into our own genome. Using these viruses to genetically modify living things is slightly more difficult than loading up a viral syringe and injecting it into the target cells. But this is a nice little nod from the show's writers to work that goes on in labs all around the world. Back in 2015, the hive mind Unity made its first and only appearance in the series, and many science communicators have likened Unity to hives of bees or wasps. While the species I just mentioned have shared goals and are willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the hive, the closest thing to a hive mind on this planet is actually a slime mold called Dictyostelium discoideum. And while it may just look like a mushroom, it's actually one of the most important species for understanding how we got to where we are today. Dictyostelium is a single-celled organism, but when it's put under stress, it releases a chemical called CAMP, or cyclic AMP. CAMP is a signal which attracts slime molds together, producing these beautiful patterns. As the slime molds come towards each other, they aggregate to produce a structure which looks a little bit like a mushroom. And at the top of this structure, the cells can differentiate to produce spores, which are blown away to a safer place where the cells can produce a new colony of slime molds. Each of the individual slime molds work together using CAMP as a conductor. They truly are part of a single hive mind. Finally, I want to talk to you about the biggest scientific theme in Rick and Morty, the idea of the multiverse. Rick's portal gun can transport the family anywhere in the multitude of parallel universes. Whether he fancies a quick trip on the whirly-durly or just wants to get rid of Jerry for the afternoon at daycare, he can go absolutely anywhere in the blink of an eye. Ignoring the physics behind traveling an almost infinite distance in a split second to another video, and frankly someone a lot more mathematically minded than myself, what I want to know is, what is a multiverse and could it be real? It's widely accepted that we live in an infinite, rapidly expanding universe. But what if I told you that existence is even larger than that? That there are a multitude of universes all expanding simultaneously? You'd probably say I was crazy, and frankly, you might be entitled to do so. But the reason people came up with this idea is that we couldn't tell what was at the edge of our universe. We've got to be expanding into something. Furthermore, there's only a limited number of configurations that the particles in our universe can take, and at some point in time, there's a chance that those particles are going to start repeating themselves. Potentially, at some point in time, they might produce an identical you, living on an identical planet, in an identical solar system, in an identical galaxy, inside an identical universe. Or perhaps there might be a few particles which are arranged differently. Maybe in that universe, you're a Rick's Morty. Or perhaps you didn't just waste the last week of your life trying to trick yourself into thinking you'll pass your degree because you're now the world's leading expert on slime molds.